For Comedy Hype News, I'm Ramil Thompson. In American culture, there are many notable symbols and images and characters used to sell various goods and products. There are plenty of brands and businesses that we remember growing up. From clothing brands, shoe brands, and food brands, a lot of our consumption of these products shaped who we are as adults. However, because of the racism and prejudices against many different groups of people, many of these images continue to push certain offensive stereotypes. One of the best known examples of this dynamic can be evidenced with the popular pancake brand, Aunt Jemima. Particularly popular in African American communities, Aunt Jemima pancakes have been a staple in the African American breakfast cuisine for multiple generations, with the comedy being branded from pearl milling in the 1800s. The caricature and character of Aunt Jemima as a Mammy-esque figure has always been criticized as racist, and up until recently was used as the company name. Many are unaware of the history behind the brand and how the Aunt Jemima image name was built. The history of the brand has been highlighted in recent times in light of the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement, which saw many racist symbols removed in the United States, but many still question how Aunt Jemima came to light and lasted for over 130 years. The story of Aunt Jemima begins with two white men named Charles Rutt and Charles Underwood in the late 1800s. After a previously failed business venture, the two purchased a flour mill company in 1889 and named it Self-Rising Pancake Flour, then created their pancake mix. The ready-made style mix that just needed water was among the first of its kind, and they thought that would be the selling point. According to a book entitled Slave in a Box, The Strange Career of Aunt Jemima by M. Manning, the two men didn't have the easiest time marketing and branding the mix, despite the fact that it was a rare product at the time. That was until Charles coincidentally walked past a performance of the minstrel song Old Aunt Jemima, performed by black musician and popular minstrel performer Billy Cursons. The song told a story of an enslaved black woman who was happily dedicated to serving her white family and who had no other desire in life but to do just that. After hearing the song, Rutt was then inspired to use a Mammy as the selling point for the brand. Racist and stereotypical marketing was certainly nothing new at the time, as it was the norm for companies to use extremely racist images in many forms of media. This can be seen in early film portrayals and product distribution and carries down a legacy that is still seen somewhat today with the roles and media appearances many African Americans get. After officially using a Mammy archetype to brand their pancakes, Rutt and Underwood would still have trouble making profits and sold the company to R.T. Davis, the owner of R.T. Davis Milling, one of the largest flour mills in Missouri. This transfer of ownership would lay the foundation for the brand we know and see today. R.T. Davis was an experienced owner in the flour mill industry and knew how to get the most out of marketing products. He then merged with a pearl milling company in 1890 and came up with the idea to turn the symbolic character of Aunt Jemima into a physical performance character, both ideas which would take the brand to new heights. The first woman who would get the job and popularize the Aunt Jemima character was a woman by the name of Nancy Green. Nancy Green was an African American woman who was born into slavery in Montgomery County, Kentucky on March 4, 1834. After the Civil War ended, she had already lost her husband and two children and relocated to Kentucky, where she became a nanny and cook for the Walker family. Subsequently, the family and Nancy moved to Chicago, where Nancy was moderately known among the locals for being a good cook. A friend of the Walkers mentioned that RT was looking for someone to portray Aunt Jemima, and they suggested Nancy go audition for the part. With no prior acting experience, Nancy got the part and was officially America's first Aunt Jemima at age 59. The rebranding began relatively quickly as the company boxes started using the slogan, "I'm in town" or "I's in town," with the likeness of Nancy on the box. According to Blacks in Advertising Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow by Marilyn Kern Foxworth, in 1893 the company was on the verge of bankruptcy and they spent the last of their money on a promotional campaign for Aunt Jemima. An excerpt from the archive states, Davis Milling constructed the world's largest flour barrel, 24 feet high and 16 feet in diameter. Doors were mounted in the side, and the interior was fitted out as a reception parlor to entertain visitors. Outside the barrel, near the front, was Nancy Green in the persona of Aunt Jemima. She cooked pancakes, sang songs, and told stories of the Old South while greeting fair visitors. She had served more than 1 million pancakes by the time the fair ended, and more than 50,000 orders were placed for Aunt Jemima pancake mix from countries all over the world. The power of performance and marketing is demonstrated here, as many people were enticed to buy the product merely because of Nancy's portrayal of a character. Nancy would go on to perform and cement the Aunt Jemima character at numerous fairs, food shows, and festivals, popularizing the brand around the United States. She was the main reason the company avoided bankruptcy and set the foundation for the company to be the conglomerate that it is today, with all of the products from the Aunt Jemima dolls to even a restaurant chain named after the character in the 50s and 60s. Despite the fact that she was the lifeline of the company, it seems that Nancy was never compensated the way people imagined. Rumors circulated that for years she died a millionaire, but this has been vehemently challenged. M. Manning couldn't confirm how much money she had, but he said there's no indication at all that she was a millionaire. Nancy is also frequently credited with creating the modern pancake recipe used for Aunt Jemima, although some sources dispute this claim. In any event, her cooking skills that had sustained her livelihood for so long showed just how invaluable she was to the success of the company. As mentioned earlier, stereotypes have always been a part of American media and culture, as the entire country was built on slavery. The various behaviors that were reactions to slavery became grossly over-exaggerated, creating stereotypes and caricatures. These range from the Buck, Uncle Tom, the Sambo, the Jezebel, and the Mammy. The legacy of slavery and racism ensured that degrading images of black people continued to be pushed and popularized, and the Mammy stereotype is one of the most well known. In slavery, black women were often tasked with taking care of the household chores, such as cleaning and cooking while rearing children, and in many cases even breastfeeding white babies, even at the cost of feeding their own babies. This reality created the Mammy personality type, as she was typically a heavy-set woman who showed extreme generosity towards her white masters while showing extreme contempt and dismissal of her own people, particularly the men. The physical traits of the Mammy type were supposed to demonstrate the unattractiveness of black women overall, and to reinforce that they were not sensual or traditionally feminine in any way, but better served as maids and cooks and more masculine. Additionally, the Mammy image was perpetuated to maintain the lie that white men were not attracted to black women, an obvious lie considering the level of sexual assault waged against black women from white men. Once chattel slavery was abolished after the Civil War in 1865, the Mammy image was one of the most prominent commercial tactics used to sell products long before Aunt Jemima even came along. There were many items made with the Mammy image, including many food, cooking, and cleaning products because of the long association with house chores. Companies like the Mammy and Tom Salt and Pepper Shakers, Louisiana Coffee, and Lux Soap all had racist depiction of Mammies as the logo of their products. A toothy smile followed by a choky laugh was the popular Mammy presentation, and from all indication this brought extreme comfort to many whites who were fearful of black retaliation for slavery. An excerpt from History on the Net states, since the stereotype included some positive qualities involving her faithful devotion to the white family as a domestic servant, Mammy allowed whites to feel good about themselves while at the same time serving as an authority on cooking and cleaning. Thus, Mammy became the perfect pitchwoman to sell numerous household products, but especially breakfast foods, detergents, and other household cooking and cleaning items. The Mammy caricature thus became mainstream. Another excerpt from a book entitled Mammy, A Century of Race, Gender, and Southern Memory by Kimberly Wallace Saunders further explains the significance and purpose of Aunt Jemima, stating, the Aunt Jemima trademark was constructed as part of the budding concept of an American dream for the American family. 1 year after the fair, the R.T. Davis Milling Company introduced the Aunt Jemima paper doll family, $5 that could be cut out from the pancake box. Aunt Jemima's paper doll family was one of the most popular company premiums. Collectors still prize a complete set over their individual dolls. This popular recreation of an African American woman's life stood in direct opposition to the efforts of real African American women struggling to publicly assert their citizenship. As a symbol of racial harmony, Aunt Jemima proved to be the preferred version of African American womanhood, an exhaustion of slaveocracy nostalgia. Not only was this image of the black woman reflected in marketing, but on screen as well, as many of the TV shows and movie roles were limited to strictly Mammy roles, as evidenced in the famous Gone with the Wind to the beloved Tom and Jerry cartoon. The Aunt Jemima Mammy character thrived entering the earlier 20th century, as the brand was quickly becoming one of the most popular breakfast choices, not only in the United States, but internationally as well. In 1900, Nancy was asked to participate in the Paris Exposition, but she would decline, quoted as saying, "I was born in this country, and here I'll die, not somewhere betwixt here and somewhere else." She would be replaced by Agnes Moody, ending her run as Aunt Jemima. By 1910, over hundreds of millions of boxes had been sold, proving that Aunt Jemima was now a gold mine. In 1914, due to her extreme popularity, the company officially became named after Aunt Jemima. Despite this, it has been documented that Nancy Green as a person was never truly distinguished from her character, nor was she given any real recognition for her portrayal despite all the acclaim the caricature received. Aside from her life as Aunt Jemima, Nancy Green was a prominent member of the Olive Baptist Church in Chicago, a church that was well known in the community for being a place of refuge for escaped blacks who fled from the South and made it to the North. Additionally, she was an activist who spoke on behalf of ending poverty and gaining civil rights in Chicago. After her Aunt Jemima days, she returned to housekeeping labor along with working in the Olive Baptist Church, fighting against injustice, staying with various relatives until she was tragically killed after being hit by a car in Chicago in 1923. In the years after Nancy Green, there have been 5 other women who have played the character of Aunt Jemima. Anna Robinson, Edith Wilson, Ethel Ernestine Harper, Rosie Hall, and Aileen Lewis have all put their own unique spin on the character following in the footsteps of Nancy. During and after the Civil Rights Movement, the criticism of the Mammy image led to the most recent image of the Aunt Jemima brand we see today with the afro and earrings. And as recently as 2020, in light of the Black Lives Matter protests, the name was changed from Aunt Jemima back to Pearl Milling Company to avoid racist accusations. The Aunt Jemima brand remains a largely popular and still controversial brand today, but hopefully this story will inspire the stoppage of any more racist stereotypes in mass media and marketing. For Comedy Hype News, I'm Ramil Thompson.